Attacks on civilians, inhumane conditions of prisoners of war, injured soldiers going without health care. All these are examples of war crimes. We're your hosts, Bella Manley,
Hannah Allen,
and Annasophia
here to tell you about war crimes and how Russia has committed them in the recent war.
Many of you probably know of the Red Cross, but many of you and other people around the world might not know how it was made and its meaning. This Swiss businessman named Henry Dunant founded the Red Cross in 1863 during the International Red Cross and Red Crescent movement. Why was the reason for it being created? According to the International Committee of the Red Cross, they claim that the Red Cross was made because Henry Dunant helped wounded soldiers at a Battle of Solferino in 1859. He wanted the Red Cross to have a meaning for political leaders to take more action into protecting war victims. This statement claims that Dunant wanted there to be an international agreement on the Red Cross so more people would recognize all the hurt and wounded on the battlefield who helped save us and have given us the respect of their own. The First Geneva Convention, which happened in 1864, was what 12 different nations helped confirm.
As mentioned before, the Geneva Conventions played a big role. Here's what they were. There were 4 conventions and 3 protocols we'll get to later. The idea of the Geneva Conventions was thought up by Henry Dunant, who was horrified when he saw soldiers suffering from sickness and injury after a battle. He thought of a way to help the soldiers by suggesting a law that required sick and injured soldiers to be treated. This came to form the First Geneva Convention of 1864, and later the Red Cross or Crescent. The Second Convention set out the rules for nautical warfare in 1906, also protecting the wounded, sick, and shipwrecked. The third decided the conditions for prisoners of war in 1929, and the fourth made the rights of civilians clear in 1949, 4 years after World War II. The protocols were a bit different, making it illegal to attack cultural sites and infrastructure, focusing the rules of war on civil wars, and allowing the Red Cross or Crescent to use the red crystal as another symbol. Breaking the rules laid out by these conventions and protocols is considered a war crime. Many people think these rules are out of date as they were made a very long time ago.
As mentioned before, breaking the Geneva Conventions and Protocols is considered a war crime. Yet, according to a CNBC article, Russia has committed over 65,000 war crimes in Ukraine during the duration of this war.
A few of these being bombings of civilian areas, executions, torture, sexual violence, and trafficking of Ukrainian children. These were discovered by the ICC examiners who came to Ukraine to gather evidence on Russia. Eric Mose, one of the leading investigators while speaking about some cases of victims, said interlocutors described beatings, electric shocks, and forced nudity, as well as other types of violations in such detention facilities.
On the matter of executions, some signs of those were victims' hands being tied behind their backs, gunshot wounds to the head, and slit throats. In speaking of executions, it was also found that some women were raped and then killed by soldiers. It doesn't stop there. Sexual and gender-based violence have been found to be committed on people the ages of 4 to 82 years old, and in some cases, the family was even forced to watch.
And then back to the topic of children, it was found that children have been raped, tortured, and like I mentioned earlier, trafficked to Russia to be given to Russian families as spoils of war. Russia is currently denying these war crimes, but the ICC has placed an arrest warrant on Putin, meaning if he steps foot into any ICC country, he will be arrested due to the country's obligations. What is the ICC is a question you might be wondering, so allow me to explain. The International Criminal Court, also known as the ICC, was originally a temporary court for the conviction of the Nazis in 1946. After a while, though, with violence continuing around the world, people started to wonder if a permanent court was an option. So in 1998, 160 countries around the world gathered in Rome to discuss a permanent ICC. Eventually, one was created, and in 2015, 123 countries acknowledged its existence. But even then, the existence of the ICC is very controversial. Many countries, including the USA, although being in support of it, do not participate in the court and are not signing the treaty in fear of losing their authority and because they don't want an outside country to meddle in their affairs. One opposer of the ICC named Ted Gallon Carpenter, in summary, said threatening to prosecute dictators and others makes them want to stay in power more, as well as that it can be hard to give civilians justice and prosecute a dictator, but supporters ignore that. Whereas some supporters like Margaret D. Guzman say things along the lines of, too many politics make the ICC hard to function, but it's only been around for a bit and we should celebrate what it has done while also mourning what it hasn't. As mentioned before, the ICC has placed an arrest warrant on Putin, but this holds no effect on him at the moment since Russia is no longer part of the Rome Statute, the name for the ICC treaty. As a matter of fact, the Kremlin even stated that the warrant was outrageous and unacceptable.
Now, hopefully, you've learned a bit about war crimes, Geneva Conventions, the war in Ukraine, and the Red Cross, because they are 4 pretty important things that happened and are currently happening in our world today. We hope you've enjoyed the podcast, and thank you for listening. This is
Bella.
Hannah
And Annasophia.
signing off. Remember to not commit any war crimes.